Yeah, still, that's gotta be the original one.
Where'd you get that?
Huh.
Put it away so we can.
That's Wong King Sing, huh?
10 people?
Yes.
Should put find a frame, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Put in glass.
Look how they always dress, Tom. They always
Yeah.
dress so well. They're poor as hell and they still dress well.
Check. Did you see this? Did I show you? I sent you this book
Wow.
where you can open it, and it's written by Luke Shaw.
Wow.
And Luke Shaw, like he gives his birth date. This is all, I sent it to you a video already.
Wow.
Here's his birth date and the grandma's birth date. And then it has each one of the uncles and aunties.
Can you take a picture of each one for me?
I sent the whole book.
Oh, did you though? Okay.
The whole thing. And it's really old.
Wow. Yeah.
It's got the names of each one of the Chinese. This is the kind of thing that if you took to people that have their reads Chinese. Like, see this, I can read Chinese in the sense that this word is the female, this girl, and that one here is boy.
Wow.
So it tells you when they were born, and it's based on the Chinese birth date, like, you know, the lunar calendar.
Wow.
Okay. So, okay, you want to start recording, or you've been doing it?
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I've been recording. I don't want to miss that. Everything you say is history, Uncle.
4th of April, 2021, and we're going to first talk about your great-grandfather, Wong King Sing. Wong King Sing was born in the county of Taishan, and the village was Xi'an. And it's part of the larger township of Guangdong, which is in the southern part of Taishan. And my information comes from my father, and I've also talked to some of the relatives, such as Mabel and my auntie or cousin Marion and other people. They were, during the time that my grandfather, Luke Shaw, my grandpa, during that time that he was birthed, between 1850 to 1868, was a time of conflict in Taishan. And there was a big sort of war going between the Hakka people and the Taishan people, in the sense that the center of the conflict was actually around our village area, and they called Guangdong. Subsequently, the Taishan people, or we called ourselves the Potung people, or actually the Sayap people. And the Hakka people were defeated and pushed back to a different part of Guangdong. And in this light, I think this can help describe some of the reason why there was a migration of the Taishan people to the United States. The Taishan people were in a part of the area. The word Taishan means plateau, and it's actually a high plateau area. And the soil is not very fertile, and therefore, with the population and the conflict going on, the Taishan people were not able to produce enough rice to keep each other from starving. And because of that, the Sayep people and the Toisan people had to work as laborers, and that's where they had their contact with the Western world, in the sense they would carry the rice from the Delta, the Pearl Delta, to Guangdong, where the British and the Western people had their ships and they needed labor. So as a result of that, the people in the Toisan and Sayep area were able to have contact with the Western world and come to the United States. In history-wise, the Sayep people, or the Toisan, which are the dominant ones, were migrants to the local area around the Song Dynasty, when the Mongols came down and pushed a lot of the Chinese south. So that the Sayep people consider themselves as a unique group, and there are basically four. Sayep means four dialects, but they're all interrelated. And that's where the people call Hoi Ping, San Moi, Toisan, and I can't remember the fourth one. So Luke Shaw came to the United States on a junk that my dad described that he came in. He didn't come on a regular sailing ship like a Western one, but came on a junk. And that's a China seagoing ship. And part of the reason that he was able to come is because they came to San Francisco and were met by people what they call Nam Hang. Nam Hang was a confederation of 40 Wong villages that had a plan to support each other, so that when they came, Luke Shaw was able to have a place to stay and people to take care of him and get things organized. And so Nam Hang was that confederation. But another thing is, history-wise, the Nam Hang also describes the people of the Sayep people that came to the United States, that came down from during the Song Dynasty to the Sayep area, which is Toisan and those other places in Guangdong. So with at that time, the benevolent society, they call I think it's called the Six Company, they had tremendous influence, and every one came to U.S. was able to get a place to stay and get started because of the family heritage. And this is typical of Chinese, in the sense that Chinese feel that if you speak the same way I speak, therefore we're willing to help you. And that's also part of the historical problem of people that came from China. If they did not speak the right dialect, people would get shanghaied. And the word Shanghai was the terminology used to send these Toisan people back to China. So they would come, and if you don't speak the language, they would send you back to China on the way back. So Grandpa Luke Shaw was in San Francisco, and my auntie said that they stayed in the town for a while, and then with relatives or friends, they were then decided that they would go to seek gold, and that was one of the big motivations, and that was to move up into the gold country. And as people know, the Chinese were discriminated against in the sense that they wouldn't let them work in any of the places that provided much gold. So Chinese weren't allowed to, say, go to the Sacramento area. And because of that, Grandpa Luke Shaw had to go all the way up north to the area of Fort Jones in Northern California. And at that time, the Fort Jones area, north of it, had gold mining that was allowed for the Chinese to work. In fact, from Grandpa James Wong, we found places where there was a big settlement of Chinese that had many thousand, and I think they called Hooperville. And then when we visited, by then all the Chinese had left, so there was none there. And I get the impression that Grandpa Luke Shaw worked in the gold mines and were some of the, not necessarily the early pioneers, but they must have been later on. Anyway, when Grandpa Luke Shaw came to the Fort Jones area, or Indian Creek, he married his wife in that was in was like I guess she was in a family. From my auntie described, she worked as a maid for a family in Wairika. And then I think the family either died or whatever it was. From a chronicle written down, she was brought over and introduced and married our Grandpa Luke Shaw. And they had 7 children. And I have a book that my Luke Shaw wrote, which was the birthing book, and it describes the name of the children, his family, his wife, and the year they were born. So Grandma Wong King Sing, or Luke Shaw's wife, was a Gui family, and they had 7 children. The oldest was Auntie Lon, and she was born January 23rd, 1895. I should mention that Luke Shaw's wife, Miss Gui, was born February 2nd, 1877. And Luke Shaw King Sing was born August 25th, 1851. The oldest child was Lon, and she was born in 1895. The second oldest was Pon, and he was born September 24th, 1896. Then came the brother Jerry, January 6, 1900. Our grandfather, James T. Wong, was born on the 6th day of the new year. Correction, the 4th person was June. He had an older sister. She was born May 16, 1901. Then our paternal grandfather, James T. Wong, was born the 6th of January, um, in the Chinese lunar calendar in 1903. His younger brother was Jacques. He was born April 9th, 1905. And the youngest child was Gracie, February 5th, 1907. Historically, Luke Shaw got his name because he worked for a company in the Indian Creek. I get the impression that most of the things were owned by the Caucasian people, and you worked for their mines. They had claimed it and you would work for it. And he historically, from a memoir published, is that while working in the mine, the owner of the mine, named Luke Shaw, was buried in a cave-in in the gold mine, and everyone worked to try and save him, but our Luke Shaw, or King Sing, stayed for several days and nights digging him out, and actually was credited with saving his life by his effort at digging out that collapsed gold mine. And after that, all the local people gave him the name of Luke Shaw. And in the history part of after that collapse, he was known as Luke Shaw. In fact, if you look at his history, when they moved to Oakland, they really mentioned Luke Shaw, and only I think probably on his tombstone do they have his name as Wong King Sing. The family lived in Indian Creek, and Luke Shaw worked over the hill in Manhattan's Creek. And later on, apparently he worked on a dredger, and the dredger was mainly in Macadam Creek, so he would be working in Macadam Creek, and then he would have to climb over the hill and drop into Indian Creek. They were sort of parallel areas. Luke Shaw worked mainly on the dredger as a dead man, and the word dead man means the person that sort of in charge of the pivotal point, so that the dredger could go back and forth. They would basically make a big lake, and then the thing would float back and forth. And he was in charge of the dead man, or positioning the post so that the dredger had a pivotal point. Interesting, a finding of that was the dredger ultimately, after all the gold panned out, was located down near Etna. And I was very fortunate in that a person that I knew through my cousin Jack Goon's Duck Club, his name was Larry Newhall, had property up there. And he, as a young man, went up and saw the dredger in Etna. And he swam out to this dredger by himself and took the bellow. And as you can imagine, during primitive times, they had to do their own metallurgy. So they had a bellow that they would pump and use that to do whatever metal work they need to do with the steel. Anyway, he told me about this, and I related the fact that my grandfather worked on that dredger, and he was kind enough, he actually gave me the bellow. So I have the original bellow that they use for smelting in my possession. And I hope someday to give it to one of the descendants as some memorial of what Grandpa Luke Shaw did. As time went in, we don't know the circumstances, but our Luke Shaw's wife, Miss Gui, apparently committed suicide, and we don't know exactly when the date, but it was sometime after Auntie Gracie was, the youngest child was born. It was by inference, people say that it was because of the isolation where all the Chinese like apparently left the area, and she was by herself with 7 kids with nothing else to look forward to, but that's all conjecture. So as time went on, Grandpa Luke Shaw moved the family down to Oakland, California, and I think it was on Clay Street that my dad mentioned that they lived, and that was approximately 1921. The family all moved down to this area, and after a while, apparently he developed a stroke and lived until the age of, I think it was 1936 is when he died. So we can calculate if he was born in 51, whatever that is, that would be his age of death in 1936. The family, when the mother committed suicide, was then run by the oldest sister, Lon, and she sort of ruled the house, and she took care of the kids. And the family apparently was very poor when they were living up there. But when they came down to Oakland, James T. Wong told me that they brought a wash basin full of gold nuggets. The presence of where the gold nuggets are was unknown. The suspicion was that they were kept by the oldest sister, though that was never disputed. She was sort of they called Daigu, which means the leader of everybody.